Welcome to Film and Page. I'm Dominic, and this is another episode of Road to Dune. So I came across this IndieWire article the other day, and the article was talking about a podcast that Roger Deakins has, and one of the guests was Denis Villeneuve, and they talked a lot about his movies and stuff, and they went into how Denis Villeneuve had worked with Roger Deakins, and because of that, some of Roger Deakins' influence is still going to be felt in Dune. So I listened to the entire podcast from start to finish, and it's a really good podcast, and it's definitely worth a watch or worth a listen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a link to that podcast in the description below this video, so you can listen to it for yourself. So I'm going to talk about the article. I'm going to get into the article first, go through it, and give my thoughts on it. Then I'm also going to talk about some stuff that the article doesn't mention that was talked about in that podcast. Villeneuve isn't ready to rewatch Blade Runner 2049, says Deakins Influenced Dune. Denis Villeneuve and Roger Deakins became one of the last decade's most prolific director-cinematographer pairings thanks to Prisoners, Sicario, and Blade Runner 2049, all three of which earned Deakins Oscar nominations for Best Cinematography. Deakins won the Academy Award for Blade Runner 2049. The success of Villeneuve-Deakins partnership made the news that the two would be splitting up on Dune a bit of a disappointment. While Dune is in great hands with Lion and Rogue One cinematographer Greg Fraser, Villeneuve says there's a bit of Deakins in the tentpole regardless, as the lessons he learned from Deakins loom large over the movie. When I'm working with you, I'm going to be in a position where I'm going to learn about filmmaking every day, Villeneuve told Deakins during a visit last week on Team Deakins podcast. I'm in a learning process working with you. It's very rewarding and exciting. Right now, I'm doing VFX on Dune, and I found myself talking about light and asking for things, and I'm like, I know it's Roger. I know that I can do these things because of Roger. Villeneuve continued, I realize how much sometimes the amount of things I've learned from you. I'm not saying you'll agree with me when you see the thing, but I just know of sensibilities that I strongly increased being with you and working on Blade Runner. It was a formative experience to design the movie from the storyboards until the very end by your side. It's insane the amount of things I learned. While Villeneuve's time working with Deakins on Blade Runner 2049 helped him in the making of Dune, the 2017 science fiction epic is not a movie that Villeneuve has gone back to rewatch since it opened in theaters to critical acclaim and disappointing box office returns. It's a movie that I was not able to watch again, Villeneuve told Deakins. It takes time to be able to digest and make peace with your own movies. For me, when I make a movie, there's a lot of deep joy and pain and anger linked with the process. When it's done, it takes me years until I'm able to watch it again and see the movie for what it is. I'm not there with Blade Runner. As for the daunting task of mounting two ginormous science fiction tentpoles back-to-back with Blade Runner 2049 and Dune, Villeneuve said he's feeling the burnout and is definitely dreaming of going back to a smaller scale production whenever it comes time to follow up Dune. It would be healthy for me to do something small, the director said. It will be good to go back to the size of something like Sicario, where I'm not having to dream about the design of a car or the design of a wallet or gun for months before. I can just embrace the scale for what it is. It will be nice to go there. So now, just my thoughts on what they talked about in the article. So obviously, it seems like Roger Deakins influenced him quite a bit. So we'll see some of that visual style from Blade Runner 2049 carried over to Dune. So nothing wrong with that. And it's kind of interesting that how some filmmakers are that how their mind works, because making a movie, I guess, is such a grueling process that it's hard to go back and rewatch it right away, because I guess that grueling process and stress and whatever else is on your shoulders is still too fresh of a memory. So interesting stuff. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about that I thought was interesting that they don't talk about in this article, but it's in the podcast, is they ask him about working with digital effects. And they kind of ask him, how much do you rely on digital effects? So his answer was interesting. He said he still wants to keep everything as whatever he can practical. He wants to keep it practical. He wants to, not just let CGI take over everything. So and the reason why he said that is because if you're on a set and it's all green screen, and then everyone has to imagine what's there, you're not going to be all on the same page creatively, or it's going to be harder to get into sync. Whereas if there's a physical set that's physically there and it's lit and it sets a certain mood, it's easier for everyone to get on the same page creatively and kind of get into the mood of whatever that is. So he says obviously he likes using CGI for things that you just can't do in real life, like having flying vehicles and stuff like that, and using it for set extension, not fully set creation. And I think that's something that when he was saying that, I thought back on the Star Wars prequels, because they really pushed the CGI in those to the point where I honestly didn't see the point. Like, they used CGI where they didn't have to. Like, everything just went full CGI. And I think the worst one for that, where I really noticed it, is Attack of the Clones. And when I go back to watch the prequels now, that's actually my least favorite one, is Attack of the Clones. And because it aged the worst, in my opinion, because it's so CGI heavy. Like, even to the point where clone troopers are just CGI with the actor's head like on it, and that you got this weird floating head effect, and it looks odd, and it hasn't aged well. Where I think if you have something physical, like an actual guy in a physically built costume, it's always going to look good. Like the stormtroopers from Return of the Jedi are always going to look better than the clone troopers from Attack of the Clones, because they're real guys in real costumes that are actually built. So that's why I think they're always going to be better. And that's one thing I did like about the sequel Star Wars movies, for all their faults. JJ went back to having actual guys in costume for the stormtroopers. So when you look at them, they are actual stormtroopers, and they actually went back and built a lot of physical sets and stuff like that, which they didn't rely so heavily on CGI. Now, I know George Lucas is the kind of guy, he's all about the technology. He wants to push technology as far as possible, but as far as that goes, I don't know. And the other thing, it was really odd to watch the making of the prequels. If you go back into the special features and you see the making of those, a lot of times it's just like a partially built set and everything is green screen or blue screen. They're like, there's nothing there. So and the actors have nothing to act against. And that has to affect their performance. Even to the point where the scene where in I think it's Revenge of the Sith, where they're flying through Coruscant in the speeder chasing that bounty hunter. When they show the making of that, it's just Ewan McGregor, and he's sitting just on almost looks like a mechanical bull, and it's just all green, and there is literally nothing around him. It's just him, and everything is green screen. Like, they didn't even bother to build at least the vehicle part of it, so at least he has something. But the vehicle's not even, there's nothing real about that scene. It's all just filled in with CGI. So I don't know, to me it doesn't age as well, just because of the resolution of what they could get up to back then, and now TVs are gone past that, so it's going to stand out more, the CGI, than if something was practical. So I like it when I'm not against CGI, but I like it if they can do it practical, or if they could build a practical set and make practical things. I think it's going to age better. It's always going to look better, and just use CGI to enhance what's like already there. Now, obviously, there's a lot of stuff that you just can't do practically. Like, if you want to do the Hulk, like, there's no way you can do him practically, because it would never work. He's one of those characters that where that's where the CGI works. You have to do him CGI, or someone like Thanos or something like that, or some of the over-the-top superhero battles, right? It'd be really hard to pull that off practically, where that's kind of where CGI comes in. But as a movie like Dune, you don't have these over-the-top powerful characters doing like these huge super powered things. So you can have actual actors in actual costumes on actual sets and have them film. I think it works really well. But definitely check out that Team Deakins podcast. It's really interesting. They talk about a lot of his movies. They get into his very early films, how he got into filmmaking, goes into Polytechnique and Sicario and all those films. The only movie they didn't talk about, I was a little bit disappointed about. They didn't really talk about Arrival, which I wish they did because I like that movie. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I will see you at the next one. I'd like to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you all in helping this channel grow. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded.